Anita, how's your mental health?
Questionable at all times. You know this.
Yeah, how's the mental health of your children?
Also a little bit tricky. Can I tell you my experience in trying to find therapists for myself and my kids, Mel?
Yes, please.
Okay, this is how it goes. You ask around your friends and your family for a referral for somebody who's nearby. You finally find somebody who sounds like they might work for your family. You give them a call and you find out that A, they're not accepting new patients, or B, they have a huge wait list. So you start over again and you ask people if they know anybody who would be a good therapist and a good fit. Finally, you find one, you go and you meet with them and you figure out that you don't actually like them that much. But it's been so much work to find somebody who you can go to in your area that you're kind of stuck with them. Well, do you have any ideas for how to get around this?
I do, because guess what? I've actually had some therapists that I have found on my own, which involves what you're saying. Sometimes I remember one time I was like 3 hours in the bathtub on my phone looking
Yeah.
through websites. I was such a prune at the end. But I have also had the experience with working with BetterHelp. And it was like, I don't want to say too good to be true, but because it is true, but it's like amazing because I was matched with my therapist within 24 hours.
And you didn't have to go through all of that other ridiculous process of trying to find somebody. And here's the cool thing too, is if that person didn't work out for you, you can just switch and say, and it's not like you're committing to another years long search for somebody who you're going to jive with.
It's true. And I lucked out, or maybe just BetterHelp is really good at matching people together because I never had to change my therapist. I loved her. Perfect fit for me. And I know that some of our friends have used BetterHelp and they've had to change therapists, and boom, same day, you can change.
Easy peasy.
You can ghost your therapist. Get a new one.
I love this idea. BetterHelp is one of our sponsors. If you use our promo code trybetterhelp.com/WWDN, you get 10% off your first month. And we totally recommend it.
Yes, get some therapy. That's trybetterhelp.com/WWDN.
A Valentine's Day to you,
Valentine's Day to you as well, Anita.
Mel. How has your Valentine's Day been?
Well, I played at a church service and it was early and I don't remember much of it because I was tired. And then,
Like how early?
well, early for me.
Okay, I was going to say it wasn't like 6 a.m. It was probably like 9.
Well, I had to leave my house at 8. That's hard for
I
me.
understand.
This is not
I'm not
musician
giving you a
time.
hard time.
Thank you. Anyway, we got done with that and then I had decided that I needed to get tons of plants, and for some reason, okay. I have been staying away from stores through the whole pandemic because I know what's going to happen. My brain needs stimulation, and when I go to Target or I go somewhere else, then I end up spending hundreds of dollars.
$1 million.
And today,
You spent
I
$1 million.
spent $300 just on plants, and my justification was, well, Scott's dead, and if he were here, he would buy this for me. I'm buying it for myself.
Do you think he would have bought you plants though, or would he have bought you something that you didn't want?
Probably both.
Yeah, okay. I bought myself 1 million pairs of socks. I bought myself 1 million pair of socks. And they made me happy.
And they have cactus on them, right?
Yes, cactuses and other things that are not cactuses. And then I wanted to buy myself more stuff today, but I didn't.
You didn't buy any Cotopaxi luggage.
No, but I was on NordstromRack.com, which is always dangerous, but I didn't buy anything.
Well, we've almost survived the night.
Yeah.
Valentine's night.
Did it feel like a different day to you, or did it feel like just another day?
Today, for me, it feels like another day.
It's so weird because Valentine's Day was never a big holiday for us, but even when I woke up this morning, it just felt like it was a different day.
Like a holiday or a bad day?
Like a bad day. Like, leave me alone. Everybody leave me alone kind of a day.
Do you think your cells in your body can tell that it's Valentine's Day? And even if you didn't care about it before, now that you have a dead person, you care about all the things and everything is harder.
Yes.
Well, here's how I've been coping with Valentine's Day. All my posts have been about my dogs and how I'm in a relationship with them.
Yes.
I don't even care anymore. I have no shame. I don't care if anybody thinks that I'm dumb or weird.
You got lots of comments that were, some of them didn't make any sense, but some of them were just mostly kind.
Yes.
So I don't think people think you're crazy. I did the Valentine's Day challenge today.
And?
It was funny.
Because did you make it about Jason
Yes.
dead in the ground? I read it.
Yes. Yeah, like one of them was who's taller now. I'm like, trick question, because he's horizontal, so I'm taller, but he's much longer or wider. It's all
Deeper into the ground.
It's all about your orientation to the y-axis. So there's that.
Hopefully your Valentine's Day was successful, whatever that means for
Whether
you.
it meant socks or plants
Or crying or laughing or nothing.
or gifts for your kids or Costco flowers for yourself
Or costumes for your dogs.
or what have you, whatever you desired. We had so much fun with our Valentine's Day shebang over Zoom. So thank you to all who came and humored us as we wrote or responded to our new dating profiles.
Yeah, Anita had some great Mad Libs. For those of you who missed it, we hope you can join the next one, whenever that may be.
Yes, we had a good time, and we had more people than we ever had before, so it got our minds thinking about how to change things up for next time and
How to make it work for more people.
yeah, and stop dying, people.
I know. It's always fun to see people make connections.
Totally.
That's my favorite part about it.
Has anything exciting happened this week? I feel like I've seen you a lot of times this week, so
Okay, I have not had any deaths except for Chick Corea, the innovative jazz pianist, who, of course, was not my close personal friend. So the grief is definitely not the same as my friend a couple of weeks ago and my husband. But so this week was manageable for me. But I can tell my brain has just been through so much shock. It's just trying to recover. That's what's hard about it. I was telling my mom today, I'm like, Mom, I think my brain is stretching. It's like a piece of taffy. And you pull it more and more and more, and you get more and more frayed. Because now, I was thinking about this. What's the difference between how I'm feeling now versus how I felt right after Scott died? And I didn't have any anxiety after Scott died because my brain was so broken. It was just in the moment. So I couldn't think of the past. I couldn't think of the future. I just was like, I'm here. Let's eat Lucky Charms.
let's suffer right now.
Yeah. So I mean, of course I was very sad, but I didn't feel anxiety. Now that I'm a couple of years out and I'm trying to take a lot of baby steps to like working, just doing regular work and doing all these things that take little steps to kind of get back into, it compounds. And so I'm always trying to be mindful of not doing too much so that I can self-care, but doing enough that I'm being productive. And it's hard. Anita, I don't even know how. I feel like at the end of the day, I'm always looking for a black and white answer. Always.
I know.
And it's never going to be that way. And I know that. So why? Counsel me. Do you guys feel like that? Any listeners? Please tell us.
I feel like that's life in general, is trying to find the balance between being nice to yourself and motivating yourself and being like, I can do better or I need to do more, but also I don't hate myself, and be nice to yourself. So
Yeah. And
interesting.
we love all those 5 steps to success that we see on Instagram. Guys, that's like a tactic for marketing. And so it's easy for it to get in our brains that if we just do these 5 things for whatever it is, it's going to be fine. And it's really an ongoing process and cyclical. So I don't want to say the word struggling because that sounds like my life's hopeless, but I'm grappling with it, I guess. Maybe that's the word. Grappling with my brain is very tired and I'm trying to kind of get back.
You're trying to find your Mel's trying to get her groove back.
Trying to get my groove back.
Yeah, I've never heard of this Chick Corea fellow.
What?
I know.
I'm not surprised. I bet our new widower friend Dennis knows.
Probably.
And I know Marie knows.
The only reason I even know any of his songs is because I watched you play one of them on your YouTube channel.
Oh, yes. La Fiesta.
Yes.
Thanks for listening.
You're
And,
sure
You're such a
welcome.
good supportive widow wife.
I know. I even left a comment.
I know.
You're welcome.
So good.
It's because you know that right now I'm all obsessed about people commenting on our Instagram, or on our
giving us reviews.
whatever this. Yeah, people commenting on the podcast and giving us a rating and review. So I'm in the mode, Mel, to help you out.
Thank you.
You want to talk about something that happened to me today that's kind of sensitive and might get me in trouble?
Yeah, I know what this is, right?
Yes. Mel gave me big eyeballs because she knows what it's about.
I'm surprised we're talking about this.
We might have to delete it all after we get done, but let's see how it goes.
Okay, let's see.
Okay. So today, my little sister got engaged. So she's been waiting for it. They went ring shopping. She knows he's had the ring, and he has just been waiting to like pop the question. And I even felt very sure it was going to be today because it's Valentine's Day. And of course, you propose on Valentine's Day. Of course you do. But I was surprised at my reaction when she actually told me.
And what was it?
It was really conflicted.
Let's talk about it.
I know. But here's the thing. This is like my disclaimer because my family will listen to this and they'll be like, Anita, you're such a jerk. Or like, how could you feel this way? In my thinking brain and in my loving of my sister brain, I want to be so happy for her. But as soon as she told me the news, all I could think was like, I don't want to talk about it. And then I was super grumpy. My kids were being loud and I was kind of like mean to them. And so then I felt bad because it's wonderful news, but I wasn't feeling wonderful about it.
So you feel guilty
Yes.
for your feelings.
Yes. Because my logical brain and my normal, not broken brain is like cheering for her. But then I'm just having these feelings of grief is really what they are. Because Valentine's Day is already a hard day. And then you kind of put that on top of it where somebody else is having happiness and like a big happiness. And you're like, I don't want to feel happy for you.
Yeah.
But I do.
Do you feel like your feelings overall about these kinds of things in life now that Jason is gone are muted much more so than before?
Actually, I feel the opposite.
What? Tell me about it.
I feel like my feelings would have been more... Okay, how do I explain this? They would have been really high, right in the middle, like happiness. I'm so happy for you, but now I have feelings that are on different sides of the spectrum that are like competing with each other, if that makes sense.
Like Mortal Kombat, but with feeling.
Hadouken!
1, 2, 3, fight!
Yes. And I hate it so much because I feel like, and if you're listening to this, Melanie,
we love you.
Don't be offended. It's like, and I don't want people to feel sorry or guilty or, you know what I'm saying? Like, oh, what should I have done differently? Nothing. Like, I am so happy for you. But at the same time, I'm having all of these feelings of sorrow and grief because the happiness that you're about to feel is the happiness that I've lost.
Yeah. It's totally understandable.
Now I'm going to lay my head on this desk and cry.
Anita is laying down, taking a nap, being sad.
Yeah.
Well,
and the only reason I actually wanted to talk about this, and I'm going to have to like pre-tell my family that I talked about this, is because I think that this is probably a feeling that other people have, and it's super hard to navigate because like my instinct is to not share this, to push this down, to keep this secret because I don't want to detract from her big, happy, whatever day. And we probably feel like that, all of us to some extent. But how do you deal with those feelings if you can't let them out, if you have to squash them down?
I agree with this. I think it's good that you're talking about it. Our whole thing is that we're pretty transparent.
We try to be. But seriously, I was like, well, I don't know, because then they're going to listen to it and then they'll be like, oh, what should we have done? Or you're a jerk. Or, you should be happy for your sister. Or
I think the moral of the story is you should. Remember, everybody says, stop shoulding all over yourself. And it's hard because these feelings will come up in different forms, right? And I mean, I guess people can have their reaction to you having a feeling, but also hopefully on the other side of the spectrum, they understand why you have these conflicting feelings and can separate them. It doesn't have anything to do with how much you care about your sister.
Right.
And you do want her to have that because Duh.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
So-
and I'm probably more worried about it going the opposite way, where they're like, oh, we're so concerned about like hurting your feelings or making you sad that we're going to stop sharing or try to be more sensitive. And that's not my goal either. I want to be part of that happiness. It's just something that I have to probably work through feeling wise and let myself feel those feelings and understand that I can have both those feelings.
Yeah.
You know, it's the and.
And instead of the but.
Yes.
Big butt.
It's the and, not the but.
Feelings. Thank you for sharing, Anita. I am confident that many of our listeners feel the same way and are glad that you shared it. If you think that this was good, Anita shared it, please give us a rating and a review so it helps her feel better, unless you have already.
So that I can like feel happy about that and not about offending every person in my family. I don't think okay.
It's going to be fine.
It is going to be fine.
All is going to be cool. I have a hard time when people who have not been widowed are dating and they want to tell me about their dating life. I would rather stab myself with a croquet stick
That is
in my
oddly
throat
specific.
and twist it. I don't want to talk about their dating.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. I don't know if I've had a lot of people want to talk to me about dating, so I don't know if I have that experience.
Yeah.
But it's kind of the same thing where you're like, I don't want to hear about the thing that I had that's gone.
Yeah.
Or that I don't want to ever experience again.
Yes. Or people's drama where I guess it's because all day, every day, I'm constantly making goals and rewriting my goals. Like for even little tiny things like, can I get out of bed today? Can I go to the store today? What are my tasks? Like even simple things.
Can I spend less than $300 on plants today?
On the one time that I leave my house in a month. Yeah. And so when certain things are in a different category, I guess, that are other people's drama and they're bringing it to me like it's mine to take care of, I also want to stab people.
Do you say, no, I'm a no drama llama?
No, but I should start just saying that. I like that.
We just unloaded all sorts of heavy stuff and hopefully we're okay.
No. Hope you all survived Valentine's. Hope it was benign if anything.
No, it's awesome when you can hope for benign.
Yeah. Mine was benign, I would say.
You would say it was benign?
Yeah.
I would say mine was like just south of benign. Like it wasn't terrible, but I could definitely feel that something inside me was sad and was mourning what could have been. We're going to pivot to our patrons now.
Because they're our true Valentines.
Yes.
We love them.
We're making a heart
With our hands.
with
You
our
cannot
hands
see.
to them. So first we're going to start with our dead husbands because they are amazing.
But they're not actually. They're zombies.
These people are alive. The first we have is David Kelly.
Then Kat, who is so famous that she only goes by Kat, like Cher.
Ivan Meisner.
Katie Kuntz,
Dawn Satterwhite.
our secret patron that wants to say, keep a-going, widows.
Thank you to our dead husbands. Next we'll move on to our widow wives and widow besties. We have Sarah Morris.
Danielle Katterberg.
Rad Rachel Barbosa.
Ooh, ooh, ooh. Karen Cornejo, the multitasker.
Sylvia, Mel's mom.
Jenny Taylor.
Ashley Hahn.
It's Ashley Han.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Ashley
Han. Amy Sapp.
Diana Becker.
Christine Anderson.
Jenny Barrow.
Aaron Posick.
Gabe Lozano.
Anna Tracy.
Ileana Bella Ruiz.
Your mom.
Kara Scara.
Black Wendy.
Marjorie Lewis.
The eternal bearer of bad news.
Jamie Aliota.
Shannon Helm.
Christina Scambato.
The fancy lady.
Emily Thornton.
Lori Farrington.
Marie Hoffman. Tammy Schwartz.
And Valerie Jonathan Hacker. Another green slip for you.
Sometimes we assume that unless we had a huge life insurance payout, we don't really need to know anything about investments or even finances. But guess what? A little knowledge of finances is critical for all of us. Maybe your partner was in charge of that stuff, and now you find yourself making all the decisions. Maybe you're mad about that. Maybe I am. Nicole from the He's Gone But the Money's Not podcast is here to help. She tackles financial literacy by telling the stories of women and widows and finance experts and shares the lessons they've learned as certified financial planners. Whether you know a lot and feel confident in your financial decisions or feel unsure about all of that stuff, there is more to learn. Listen and subscribe to the He's Gone But the Money's Not podcast on all podcast platforms. This ad was paid for by Rockhouse Financial, an SEC-registered investment advisor.
That was odd. Thank you to everybody who supports our podcast. You're the best. And that is the truth.
And if any of our listeners would like to also become a patron, sign up at patreon.com/WWDN. And there is also a link in the show notes.
And if you are interested in making a one-time donation, you can buy us a taco at buymeacoffee.com/widowwedonow.
Okay, let's get to our episode. I'm super stoked.
I'm Anita.
I'm Mel.
We're just two young widows being sad on Valentine's Day, but
sad.
also a little not sad. Being benign on Valentine's Day and spending too much money on Valentine's Day and having feelings on Valentine's Day. And we're trying to figure out
Widow we do now.
Mel, can I tell you who we're interviewing today?
Yep, I'm super stoked.
This is Lauren.
Lauren.
Lentz. Actually, it's just Lauren. But let me tell you where I found her.
Tell us.
She was in a tree and she was like crying. This is not true. Okay. So Lauren, I first came upon her when she was the widow of the week for the Hot Young Widows Club. And her story resonated with me because we had some similarities, but also some really big differences, but a little bit of similarities. So I started following her after that. And then when we were starting to schedule, I was like, I want to talk to her. So we reached out and she said yes, without knowing what she was getting herself into. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you both for having me again. I just really, really appreciate it. It's an honor.
Oh, thanks. Tell us where you're recording from or where you're coming from.
Yeah, I am in Vista, California, San Diego County. I'm coming to you
That
from
sucks.
a bedroom. Yeah, it's a bummer. Actually, typically our weather's amazing, but it has been like coming down lately. We've had like super hot weather, then super cold. It hailed the other day. They said there was a tornado that touched down somewhere in Oceanside. It's been all over the place.
So it's like the end of the world.
Pretty much.
I mean, honestly, yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Aren't we used to all of that by now,
I know.
you guys?
I know.
I just feel like, is everything ever going to be normal again? And then the answer is no. It's going to be less normal. It's just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder, and nobody will ever feel comfortable with their life again. Okay. Lauren, tell us a little bit about yourself. You told us a little bit before we started recording, but what do you do? What's your family like? All that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I am a second grade teacher. I've been teaching for 9 years. And I have a little 2-year-old and live close to both Kevin's family and my family. We're super tight knit and just have an amazing community nearby.
I have a second grader right now. So do you want him?
Oh, absolutely. I
him?
totally can take him. Although I'm not teaching virtually anymore, so that might get complicated.
We're not doing virtual either. And yesterday we had to do a math assignment. And seriously, I had to use all the patience in my entire body to try and get through this math assignment. Oh my gosh! And I swore a few times and it was awful.
Yeah, the math is bonkers these days. I taught 4th grade for a while, and no joke, I'd come home and be like, Kevin, please break this down for me, because he was a general contractor. So he would like literally like start helping me with fractions and all this stuff and writing it out. I'm like, okay. I can
so funny. Oh, man. Well, Kate, this is so not important, but sort of important. Are all of your students super behind right now?
They're not.
Say yes. Just lie to me.
Well, I would say more than usual. So still have you're still going to have some of those kids regardless that just kind of learn naturally and progress naturally. But this year, more than any other year, I have seen a really large gap between the kids that struggle and the kids that you know, are able to,
Just get it.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Really tough time.
Oh, okay. I am like, I'm sorry, you're going to have to survive with a second and a fifth grade education because this is where it ends.
Yeah.
For you
Yeah.
guys.
So sorry about that. No, they'll do great. Just
probably. That's what I keep having to tell myself. Okay, Lauren, why don't you give us the little synopsis of how you became a widow?
Yeah. So this is actually kind of fun and serendipitous, if you would like to think that or believe that. I was living in Santa Barbara, California in 2010, and I was deciding to come home to actually complete my teaching credential. And so I had come down in the spring of 2010, and down is to San Diego. So I'd come down to check things out and figure out if I want to be a teacher. And went out with a girlfriend who happened to be in town as well. We were out at the bars in Encinitas and having a drink. And one of my friends like, oh, let me take a picture of the two of you. So he takes a picture of us, and these two guys jump in the background of our picture. And I'm like a little intrigued because they were both cute, but at the same time, I'm annoyed because I'm like, oh, who does that? You know, we're like in our mid-20s. And so I turned around and I introduced myself to the two guys, and I'm drawn to one of them, and I say, well, I might as well get your name because you're going to be in my picture for the rest of my life, right? And fast forward, the night goes on. We flirted for a little bit, moved on. And then I moved home from Santa Barbara in the summer of 2010. And I was single, and every single person I knew, all my girlfriends like, I have this guy for you and this guy for you. I'm like, hey, I'm not about that right now. I'm totally fine with where I'm at in life. And I'd gone out to have a happy hour drink with my girlfriend, Jen. And she was like, do you mind if my husband comes to have a drink with us? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. So he comes and has a drink, and he brings his friend, Kevin, that they had trying to introduce me to. And I was like, oh, you guys had duped me, but I was so sad about it because he had this beautiful smile. It was definitely intriguing. So Kevin and I got to know each other for a couple months. He was actually pretty shy. And if you knew him, you would not gather that from him, but he was shy. And he finally got around to asking me out like a month or two after we had been introduced, and we hit it off and fell for each other pretty quickly. And I had posted a picture after all this on my Facebook account or something. And my girlfriend from the spring, when we went out, she writes me and she's like, Lauren, that guy you're dating is the dude that jumped in the back of our photo when we went out. And I was like, no. And then I looked and it really was. And so it's just this like wild, crazy thing. I'm like, who would have ever thought that something like that would happen? So we've told that story to a lot of people. My dad talked about it at our engagement party. Like I said, we fell for each other really quickly, but we did not get married quickly. We spent about 6.5 years together and got married in 2016, and then had our baby boy in 2018.
Oh, wow. That's so funny.
Yeah.
Serendipity.
Right.
It's a real thing.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was the good days. That was the good old days. That was the good times. Tell us about where things went south.
So actually in 2016, and even before 2016, my dad had introduced Kevin to cycling and mountain biking. They had kind of hit it off when we newly started dating, and my dad was talking about, mountain biking, and Kevin had a lot of dirt bike experience when he was a kid. So my dad's like, oh, let's get you out in the dirt, all these things. And that's a whole nother story, but long story short, he fell in love with mountain biking and riding the road. And in 2016, he was asked to race competitively for a mountain bike race team. And so he raced 2016 and 2017. And then in 2018, when we had our son, he took a little break. And so in 2019, he decided that he wanted to get ready for the 2020 race season. And so he had been out getting together with all of his teammates and riding on the weekends and kind of just getting back into the groove. And on November 23rd, 2019, he left with a teammate. Even though he was mountain biking, he would ride from our house to wherever they were going. And it's usually about like a 10-mile road ride, no big deal. And he rode out at a place in Escondido called Daily Ranch, and they had just an awesome ride. And I had text him because I actually happened to be at the coffee shop. I was finishing my master's degree, and I had texted him that I was going to be late to see if he was going to be home on time, which he was notorious for not being home on time. So I texted him at like 10:30, and I hadn't heard back from him. We had GPS on one another. And so just because of, we both rode, and so we like to know where we were. And I checked where he was, and he was at Daily Ranch in Escondido. And so didn't think anything of it and decided to pack my stuff up and head home. He said he was going to be home at 12. Got home, it was 12 o'clock, and he was not there. And so I took our son, and we went and ran some errands. And when I got home, it was like 2.5 hours after he was supposed to be home, and I still hadn't heard from him. And I wasn't extremely worried, but I definitely was irritated because I was like, he knew I had stuff to do today. And where is he? Looked at the GPS, and it was still in the same spot. I'm like, who do we know in Escondido? Who is he having a beer with right now? He's being so irresponsible, you know? So I texted him a couple more times, and then 3 o'clock came around, and I just had this stomach ache, and I was like, something's not right. So I called his teammate that he was with, who happened to not have my phone number, and he picked up the phone. He answered, and I was like, hey, Mark, where are you guys? Like, it's so late. And he went silent. And then the next thing you know, he asked me if I was with anyone. And I just remember going completely numb. Like I couldn't feel my legs, like fell to the ground. And I looked at our son right in the eyes, and I just said, you know, tell me he's okay. Please tell me he's okay. And he didn't say anything. He said, I'm going to come over, and I'm going to talk to you, and I'm going to be with you. And I hung up on him, and I instantly knew something had gone terribly wrong. And I called my mom and my dad, just screaming like, Kevin's dead. Kevin's dead. I know he's dead. Please come over. And everyone came over, and it felt like hours, and I'm sure it was just minutes. And his teammate, Mark, had told us that when Kevin was riding out of the park, there were about 10 of them, and Kevin and his good friend Jills had decided they were going to stop and have a snack. And the other 7 guys decided that they were going to go down and meet them at the bottom of the hill. And after Kevin and Jills had their snack, they proceeded to ride out of the park into like a public road. And while they were riding out on the road, a man came around a blind curve, going double the speed limit on the wrong side of the road, and hit Kevin, instantly killing him into a city park. It was just like, it's something that, I mean, it's just still to this day unfathomable, but like in that moment, just like, there's just no way that this is real life. I mean, there was like a line of traffic. There were just tons of people around, and this person decides to just bomb up a hill going, you know, way, way, way too fast. So
was the person trying to get around the traffic and so went the other direction, or you don't?
We don't know. It's actually, everything's still being investigated. So because of COVID, the trial has been postponed. There's there's high suspicions that he was under the influence. And so I think that's a combination of probably being impatient and then being intoxicated. But Kevin was killed instantly. And if it weren't actually for calling Mark, I would not have known. The coroner didn't come until 6 p.m. and he was killed at 11:52 a.m. because it was an investigation, and because the person that killed him fled the scene. There was a lot that they could not convey to us. And yeah, Kevin's mom had to call and ask, you know, everyone to figure out like, why aren't people talking to us about this right now? How has no one notified us that he's gone?
That's the reason that your story was so like personal to me, is that my husband got hit twice by cars. He was I mountain bike and cycle, and my husband was also a mountain bike and cyclist. And he got hit twice by cars, but didn't die, and then died later. So that was kind of like stupid. But so I am always very heightened to stories of cyclists being hit by cars, because that has happened to us twice in our life, and it's a big deal. And Mel is always asking me how she can be nice to bikes for my benefit.
I like that. Well, yeah, I mean, there is an intolerance around cycling. Absolutely. And some of our friends, before I introduced Kevin into our little circle, felt very strongly that cyclists, were kind of pompous and did their own thing. And after meeting Kevin, we've had many friends say like, oh gosh, like every cyclist I see, I think of him, and I think of if it was my family, and I just try to, change my perspective on the whole thing. But
yeah, totally. Have you heard of the It Could Be Me campaign?
no.
So it's a cyclist awareness campaign. A lady, I think her name is, I won't remember, so I'm not going to say it, but she started it, and it's basically trying to make people aware that cyclists, it could be your husband, it could be my husband, it could be, it's a person who has a family, who has a life, and they're not a nuisance per se. They're, it could be me, it could be you, kind of a thing.
So Lauren, Anita and I, our husbands did not die at the hands of somebody else. My husband died after a tonsillectomy, like super random. And Anita's had a heart condition. So what has it been like for you to not only have your husband be dead, but it was caused by somebody? If you can answer that and want to answer that, I know that's tough.
I know. No, and no, and I have no problem talking about it, but, it goes back to that whole thing about just, you never think it's going to happen to you, right? Kevin was extremely agile on the bike, and I was never concerned, especially when he was mountain biking, about him riding. I knew he could get out of any circumstance. And so when he was killed, it was just like trying to wrap your mind around that. And then the way that he was killed. And then you find out that our judicial system is more in line with supporting the criminal than the victim and their family. And you're dealing with all sorts of, things like, I thought this guy would be getting put away for life. And no, come to find out, like vehicular manslaughter is only 6 to 12 years. And you're just like, what? My husband is dead, like never coming back. You stole his last breath, and you're telling me that like in 6 to 12 years, you could be out just skipping around and like living a life. And that's absolutely unacceptable. So there was just, grappling with that, anger about that. Luckily for me, I have been given a gift of not being angry towards the person who killed Kevin. I have a lot of thoughts about it, but I don't think about him often. I don't want to think about him often. I don't think he deserves that space in my mind. But there's a lot of heaviness to it. After Kevin died, I was thinking about this the other day. When I found out, I can't explain it other than to say that I felt claustrophobic in my own body. I remember walking out of my house and feeling like I could not breathe, like breathing was no longer natural. And I just wanted to literally tear out of my skin. It was it sounds crazy, even just saying it out loud. I was like, I need to rip out of this. Like, I can't be here. I don't want to be here. This is not reality. This is not my life. And I felt like the walls were just like coming in on me. So if that explains it at all, that's kind of that initial just shock of hearing that the love of your life is dead, and that that was 110% preventable. Like, this should never happen, ever, ever, ever.
How you explain that did not sound crazy to me at all. And I don't think it will sound crazy to any of the people listening either, because I think we've all felt a measure of that. Like, I got to get out of here, but where's here? Like, here
right.
It's just me. I got to run away. I got to get out of this. And there's no place to go.
Yeah. You did run away, didn't you, Anita?
No, I would have.
Like, the next day, you wanted to run away.
No,
I think that's what it was.
I wanted to run away, but because I just had surgery myself, I was like, I couldn't. Like, I really felt like I wanted to just bolt out the door and just run and not look back. But I was not in physical condition to do that. So
yeah. Does she know? Did you tell her? Anita's husband died, and then she found out she had cancer like
Oh,
the next
God.
week.
Yeah.
That was the
I'm
first
telling
thing.
you,
Super
again,
cool.
like these are things that I may get to talking to you about eventually, but like anxiety after a trauma like that and the fear of loss or the fear of something happening to my son or myself and then him being orphaned is like at another level.
Yeah, totally.
So to hear that about you, oh goodness.
I know. I was like, what is going on and who, like, why? Like, what did I do?
Yeah.
How do I repent?
Like,
You know,
who's
make this better.
punking you right now? I literally,
Yes.
there was a time that I like looked up at our ceiling. I was laying in bed and I was like, what have I done? Because all of a sudden our son had this crazy sleep regression and he's waking every 2 hours. I'm grieving.
Yeah.
I can't even like fathom what life has become. And I'm like, this is straight torture.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I've said those words too. I'm like, do you know this is like criminal of war? This is how they treat criminals of war.
Right.
You know? Like they're torturing me. Yeah. I think it's also, I don't know if it would be harder or not harder, but the person that it wasn't just an accident either. It wasn't like, you know, it was something that could have been prevented because that person was not following.
And that is something that
road.
was infuriating, still is infuriating to me, but it's lessened. I've kind of surrendered to it. But when it was called, it is called an accident, right? But you had full intentions of driving on the wrong side of the road. So it is no accident. Like if it wasn't Kevin, it could have been a car. It could have been a kid. They were going into a city park. There are tons of people there. And so that word accident it doesn't sit well with me. It just like, it's like sour in my mouth. I don't consider his death an accident. I do realize that the person that was behind the wheel wasn't intentionally going to kill like he wasn't get in his car and think like, today I'm going to kill someone. But the thing is your behavior, and again, because the trial is coming up, I probably shouldn't touch too much on that, but his behavior has proven over and over and over and over again, because he's been in the system so many times, that this wasn't just a pure accident. You knew that your behavior could get you to harm someone or harm yourself.
It's just heartbreaking.
It's beyond infuriating.
Yeah, no, it is. And those days after Kevin died, like I said, and Anita, you were mentioning that did make sense to you, feeling claustrophobic. It was like, I don't know for both of you, but for me, I didn't know the day. I didn't know the time. I had no wherewithal. If it weren't for family helping take care of my son and literally putting food in front of me and water in front of me, I wouldn't have been able to do it. I would not have been able to do it. I remember my sister saying like, oh, what time does he get his bottle? And I'm like, what time is it? I have no clue. You know what I mean? Oh gosh, your life has been pulverized. I had someone tell me that it was like, you'll pick up the pieces. I'm like, what pieces? Everything's gone. It's not, there's nothing.
It's like pulverized.
To pick up, like literally nothing to pick up.
Yeah, totally.
I remember walking around and just being in this daze, and it probably was for months, and I was like, what, why, what, huh? And the most common phrase that I would say if people were talking to me was, I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. And like you just said, like people had to put food in front of you. They had to put water in front of you. It's like my arms couldn't even raise up to do it. And I didn't care either about eating.
No, you don't care about anything. And I think that something that I did, looking back, I'm laughing. It's not funny, but something that I did that I feel like is so terrible is, people are, I'm sure you both experienced this. Like people would say to me, what can I do to help you? And my only response that first week was bring Kevin back. Like what a terrible thing to put on someone. Like now looking back, I'm like, oh my gosh, how gut wrenching that must have been for the people asking me how they can support me. And I'm like, you have one mission and your mission is go get
and it's
Kevin.
impossible. Go.
Because that's all I wanted. That's all I cared about. I did not care about anything else. I'm like, press rewind. Let's redo this. I want Kevin to have stayed in that morning and to pretend like none of this ever happened. I mean, it's such an out of body experience anyways. I don't know about for you, but for me personally, I was like, I feel like I'm floating above everyone and I am supporting someone. Like I should be there telling my friend, like, it's going to be okay. Like I looked at myself like a friend. It was the strangest thing. It was like my brain literally couldn't connect with the truth. And so as a defense mechanism, it was floating above, and it was like, you're just supporting someone. And I had crazy thoughts like, Lauren, I think you're in a coma. Are you in a coma? And I'm like literally looking around like, okay, no, I'm touching things. Like, oh, I'm about to get into a car and drive. That's probably, probably a good indicator that I'm not in a coma. But like, I mean, again, like your brain's trying to protect itself from all this trauma that it's experiencing.
That pain, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I had the same thoughts, and I also was like, is this a movie? Am I watching a movie? I'm like, have I gone into an alternate reality? Like, my life is still over there, and I've been transported over here. How do I get back to over there where my life actually is? Mm-hmm. And not this part over here, because I don't like this part. And people would say, what is it? How is it? What is it going? How is it? They just wanted to understand the experience, and all I could keep saying was, this is so stupid and this is so weird. Like just kept saying that over and over. This is so stupid and this is so weird. Like, cause it just didn't feel like reality. Yeah. What if you found out that your life was actually a soap opera and that you are the evil twin and that you are in a coma?
That is very soap opera.
I know.
That is The Bold and the Beautiful right there.
I think it's a good idea.
Did you guys feel in that first week, and I know this kind of happens after the first week too, but that it wasn't real, but then you thought he was just going to come home that night and walk through the door and be like, haha, that's a big joke. Just kidding. I'm back.
I felt like that for the first year. It ebbed and flowed for sure, but there were still times up until that year point where I was like, again, and I never saw Kevin dead. So that was another piece. I got to choose, and I just chose for me personally that I didn't feel that it would bring any solace to my heart and to my mind. So I chose not to see him. And so I think even that in itself, and then the story that how he died, I was just like, no, like I'm going to hear his truck pull up in the driveway and I'm going to hear his boots coming up the stairs and he's just going to be here. And it felt like that for sure the first couple months. And then slowly but surely that dissipated, but it still would come back. And there were times, like I said, up to that year point where I was like, I don't know, maybe it's just, he's not going to walk through the door.
I still get that. I still have these like little just split second where I'm like, oh yeah, but then Jason will be home really quick. Oh no. Or like I'll grab my phone, I'll reach for my phone, like I've got to tell, oh no, never mind, that kind of thing. So I don't know if I've told this story before, Mel. If I have, tell me it and we don't have to include it. But there was one day I was outside in our driveway and I don't remember what I was doing, but I looked up the street and there was a bike coming down the street and the person was wearing a jersey that Jason had and he had a beard. And I stopped dead in my tracks because like my brain was not understanding. I was like, Jason is riding his bike. And then that person rode into my driveway. And I was just like, I can't even explain I just was like, and it was my neighbor who they had been out of the country for months and they weren't supposed to be back for another couple months. So it didn't my brain didn't compute that it could be this other person. And they were talking to me and I was like gonna throw up. And they probably thought I was a crazy person because I just was not communicating properly. And it shook me up so much. I went inside and I had to like sit down because I was like, Jason just rode his bike into my driveway. Yeah. Wow. And then it wasn't him, but
I had one of those at a wedding I was playing at, and I was playing and I looked up and I'm like, I swear that is Scott. And I even took a picture and sent it to his brother and my sister-in-law, and they were like, holy crap, what is happening? And it was like, I was stuck there on my gig, so I had to play like for hours, and I just kept like staring. I'm like, this guy's gonna turn around
be like,
and think that I'm like a creepo, but really, and then it's gonna be worse because if I do talk to him, I'll be like, I'm sorry, you just look like my dead husband.
Yeah, is that a problem?
Yeah, it just shakes you up so much.
Yes,
it does.
Did you get to talk to that guy, Mel?
No, I was scared.
Okay. Do you know who he was?
No, just some rando guest at the wedding.
Oh my gosh.
That's a whole other thing, playing for weddings when you're a widow. Like, I don't recommend it. I don't recommend it.
You're like, have a happy marriage. I hope you don't die.
I can't go to weddings anymore because that's what I want to blurt out.
We were slated to go to, I think it was 8 weddings the year 2020. So the year after Kevin, we had all these wedding invites, and then COVID. So we ended up I ended up going to 3, but the first one was, I mean, they were all tough, but the first one was just like a month and a half after he died. And I was like, how did I even get myself here? I'm not even sure. But yeah,
I hope it was like really good friends.
it was Kevin's cousin, actually. It was Kevin's cousin. So, and my sister was able to attend as a guest, and she was a huge support system for me, and his parents were there. It was a beautiful wedding. And, we attended the ceremony, and we went to the reception for a little bit, and we just headed home. It was heavy for all of us, but it was just one of those things where I felt like I wanted to be able to witness love, even though I was in, great depths of pain. I didn't want to feel, and this is just me personally, because I know a lot of other people cannot do this, but I didn't want to take that away from myself and from Kevin's cousins by not attending.
Well, that was rather big of you, I will say.
Yeah.
Good
Thank
job.
you.
So when I first reached out to you and we were trying to figure out scheduling, you said, like, those days don't work for me. I work and then this and that. And you said, sorry to be a pain. And I laughed out loud because I was like, oh, yeah, you're such a pain. Or you're just like a solo parent who has a 2-year-old child. Right. Like,
Right.
Please drop everything and make yourself available to us. So I wanted to ask you about parenting solo.
Yeah.
How's that going?
It's been a doozy. So Kevin was killed when our son Lawson was 14 months old. And he was our son was just going through some stuff. We had him in daycare, and he was like chronically sick. I mean, literally every 2 weeks he was sick. So shortly after Kevin was killed, I had him tested, and he ended up having, and he has, an immune deficiency. We're hoping it's temporary, but he's just way more prone to catching everything. So there was that I was dealing with. And for me, him getting sick is a trigger. It makes me feel very, very helpless. So that's been a big challenge. And then he, like I told you guys in the beginning, he regressed with sleep. So, and he's actually going to be having a sleep study because he's just like all over the place, and they're kind of wanting to confirm that it's not sleep apnea or anything more serious going on, but we are grieving. And then I'll like lay down to this day. I'll lay down and I go to bed very early because I know he's going to be waking up, and I get anxious like the second that I lay down, because I'm like, okay, is he going to be awake in 2 hours? Is he going to be awake in 4 hours? And then on top of that, he's a toddler. So now he's 2 years old, and toddler.
And he's like half evil, so it's
1,000%. And I'm stubborn, and Kevin was stubborn, and now we have a little dude that is equally as stubborn running around the house. And I would be absolutely lying to say that it's easy. It's not easy. And it was one of the first things that I searched for when I became a widow: support to help widows with their children. And there is such a little amount of resources out there for stuff like that. And when I reached out to his pediatrician, it was just kind of like, help yourself, take care of yourself, and then everything else will come. And I'm like, but I have been thrust into this solo parenthood. I have no clue. Kevin was a phenomenal father. And like I said, I was in my master's program when he was killed. And so he was literally taking on 90% of the duties. He was dropping him off at daycare. He was picking him up. He was making us dinner. He was cooking. He was cleaning. He was doing everything. And so when he died, all of a sudden, I'm still trying to finish up this master's program, and I'm taking care of a child, and I'm dealing with the death of my husband, and I'm trying to figure out all these things. He paid the bills. All these responsibilities that really fell on him are now falling on me. And I was a nasty parent. Like I 100% will admit that in the beginning, my grief came through as impatience, and it still does, but not nearly as bad as it did in the beginning. And I would just,
No, I was proud of you for saying I was a nasty parent.
no, I still can be. No, I still can be, but not nearly as bad as the beginning. And I mean, I literally told my mom, I'm like, this isn't okay. Like I'm screaming at a little baby and it's unacceptable behavior. And I don't know how to stop it because I'm just in so much pain. I'm so sad and I'm hurting tremendously. And I don't know how to respond to his behaviors appropriately. And you just see his sweet little face. He'd get so sad when I'd scream at him. I'm like, I can't do this. I can't. So yes, extremely long story. I've been really working on that area in my life because solo parenting has not come to me naturally at all.
I'm so glad that you guys are connecting because Anita is at the end of a rope every day.
All the time. And
Yes.
last night I was like really at the end of my rope. So if you need some like tricks, I have some tricks. Like if you turn the power off to the whole house, that makes them scream a lot, but it also makes them go to bed.
I don't know that would work for my little guy. I think he would just need to be in. He likes to wake up at around 1 and say, Mama's bed, Mama's bed. I'm like, you're right. It's Mama's bed. So you stay in your crib and I'm going to do my thing over here. But no, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah, I'm with you. I sleep with at least 2 extra individuals in my bed.
Well, and I mean, again, it's something that we rarely talk about is their grieving process. And he was only 14 months old. Everyone wanted to say that he wasn't grieving. And yet I have a picture. I'll have to show you both. He was pulling Kevin's jackets out of his closet and laying on them. And he was asking for him all the time. He could recognize a white Tundra, the coffee machine. He still calls the garage Dada's garage. He says, bye, Dada, every time we close the garage. You know, to say that children that age don't grieve is BS. And I still think he's grieving, but especially in the beginning. And then in the beginning too, I don't know, Anita, about your kiddos, but he was so needy. If I left the house, it was like World War III. I mean, it was treacherous. Like I didn't want to leave because he's screaming bloody murder. And the last thing you want to do is leave your child when they're in such distress.
Yeah. And then you feel trapped because you're like, I can never get what I need because I'm responsible for your needs and you're hurting. And, it's like this whole, it's a very difficult thing. Yes, Mel?
Teachers, I have a question.
Yes.
So Lauren, you mentioned that there were not really resources to help you in this new journey of solo parenting. Like you mentioned when you went to the pediatrician, they're like, well, take care of yourself. Have you found anything that's helpful? Like, are there resources out there? Or nonprofits or anything?
The Dougie Center is a nonprofit that I would highly recommend. However, I do think that their resources still are geared more towards, older children. I really haven't found anything that's geared towards infancy and toddlers, with the exception of just like toddler coaching and parent coaching, nothing specific to widows, because you're not just, and I shouldn't say just is not the right word, but you're not getting a divorce where this is like something that's been like talked about and you still have another parent for the most part that's like willing to participate in parenting. No, like this chapter is force closed upon you. You do not have a teen parent anymore, and you're doing all this on your own, and you're just in the absolute trenches, and you're expected to take care of you and your children. And there's just not much out there. So I have found a lot of toddler pages, like I said, Instagram pages and some coaching pages that I have followed, but nothing specific towards the widowed mother.
Speaking of widowed mother, my 4-year-old is outside my door right now asking if he can light a candle. So I'm like, no, don't light anything on fire. So I am super curious. Did you finish your master's degree?
I did. So I had 3 weeks left, and I had become really close with 3 women in my program. And I had finished my thesis. Really what needed to be done was my portfolio and to defend my thesis. And the school that I was going through allowed me to not have to defend my thesis because I did so well in the program. And then the other 3 put my portfolio together for me. I remember trying to do it. I was like, oh, I got this. It's okay. I got it. I was like, oh, no, I do not. I can't even I can't think of like one thing to put down on this piece of paper. I can't even figure out how to organize all this stuff.
You're like, I don't even know what these papers are. If I wrote them, I do not recognize
because,
them.
And then you're like planning, we were planning Kevin's celebration of life. We have people flying in from literally all over the world. I'm dealing with decedent affairs, which, I mean, hello, that's another area that we just so struggle with, right? Like no one's coming and handing you like this paperwork for all the things that you need to do, yet you have to go figure it out. You're already just like an absolute shit show. And here you are, you have no, like my mom was going and looking at checklists online and printing things out and like, oh, here are the things that we need to do. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I don't even know where to begin.
Yeah. And your brain is broken and they're like, go figure this out. Go jump through all the hoops.
And you have 5 days bereavement. We'll see you back in 5 days.
Yeah. This is what I imagine, if I can imagine for fun, what you're defending your thesis would have sounded like if it had to happen. You would like stand up there and they would ask you a question and you'd be like, my husband died. And then they would ask you another question and you'd be like, see answer number 1. And that's the whole thing. And then they would get to the end and they would be like, she passes because whoa.
Yeah, we're sorry for you.
So you teach second grade right now,
right?
And have you been teaching second grade this whole time? And so your master's is like additionally.
So my master's is in educational leadership. So I had intended on going the principal route at some point, administrator route, I should say. But my life is just, in flex right now. So I have no idea where I'm headed in that regard. But yeah, I had been in the classroom for 8 years at the time, and I knew I wanted something a little different, something a little bit more. I knew I wanted a leadership position, and I just didn't really know exactly what I wanted that to look like. So I decided when my son was 4 months old that I was going to go and get myself a master's.
Yes.
Yeah.
Have you had kids in your classroom in the past that have had to mourn the death of a parent?
Absolutely. And actually right now I have a little one whose dad died of cancer 2 years ago and her mom is terminally ill.
No.
Yeah. Come on.
Yeah, I know. It was not. None of this is, right? It brings your attention to that fact that life is not fair. And there are a lot of things in this world that just do not make sense.
I was just going to say, there's so much pain even besides death. It's just like you just scratch the surface and you'd think like, this is all stupid. Why are we even here? We're just here to be really sad. Like all
How do you help or what are some of your, I don't want to say tactics because that sounds so cold and unfeeling, but you have a whole class of kids and then you have a kid that's suffering. Mm-hmm. How do you go about that balance? How do you help that kid while maintaining balance with the rest of the class?
Well, I am very open about Kevin's death. I don't go into specifics with them, but I've found over the last 9 years that many children experience loss of a grandparent, loss of a parent, aunt, uncle. And so it was no news to them that Kevin had died. Kevin's death was all over the news and it was brought to the whole school's attention when he died. So I didn't want to shove it under the rug and I wanted to be able to have an open conversation. And so I think having that open conversation with my students and allowing them to understand death, explore death with me, and to realize that I'm very empathetic and sympathetic towards their circumstances has made her, I think, a lot more open and feeling safe in my classroom. And then on top of that, we do have a school counselor that supports her and supports mom and really, checks in weekly and all those kind of things. And I mean, they do have, they have her aunt lined up to take care of her when mom is no longer here. And I think that the counselor is trying to walk her through that.
When Jason died, 3 of my kids were in school. I have 4 kids and 3 of them are in school. And my oldest one's teacher had the class all write her notes and like came in. All three of the sixth grade teachers came and visited her, and they were really sweet, and they had every right, condolence notes. And then my third child, who was in first grade, I can't even remember at the time, she brought him a Build-A-Bear, and it had like a heartbeat in it, and she like came and gave him a hug, and it was so sweet. And my second son, his teacher didn't do anything.
Well,
and
that's like the gamut of life, right? Like I feel like you're going to experience every single walk of life, and someone's going to do one of those things.
Yeah, it was heartbreaking though, because he watched those other two teachers, and I could see it in his eyes that he was like, why didn't my teacher do that? And it wasn't anything that I could make up for, and I was just like, what do I do? Right. It was so painful. And he just internalized that. Like, their teachers love them. My teacher doesn't love me. And the other thing that made me mad, side note, doesn't have anything to do with anything, is the other two teachers were smart enough not to mark my kids absent. Like, we know where they are. My one son's teacher marked him absent every single day, and I had to call and excuse his absences every single day. And I was like, I do not need to be calling you to excuse his absence. You know where he is. Okay,
right.
Rant over.
Yeah.
We can continue. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Now Lauren's like, and I'm a little afraid of her.
I'm like, did I mark her absent? No, I'm just kidding. What did I do here? What was my...
Yeah. Now you have some tips on what not to do, and it's don't mark them absent because you know where they are. Anyway, you said that you've got a lot of close family and friends. Do you want to tell us what things people were able to do for you that was really helpful?
Yeah, absolutely.
In the early days, and then actually even in the nowadays too, because I'm interested in that too.
Yeah. So I have been extremely fortunate because I know, speaking to other widow sisters, that life does not look like this for everyone. So Kevin and I both had a huge community. I mean, 600 people attended his celebration of life. And so I had people show up from the cycling community, from the teaching community, my family, my friends, and my dad's best friend actually started a GoFundMe. And I struggled with that. Oh, that was very, very humbling. I'm like, I don't want help. I don't need help. And he's like, you need to let the pride go and really ask yourself, like, what is life going to look like for you without Kevin's financial support? You still own a home. You still have all these bills to pay. So he set up a GoFundMe. My mom and my best friends set up a Google Calendar for the first 6 months, and someone rotated through my house every single night to spend the night. COVID kind of fizzled that out, but I had about 4 months of people staying with me every single night to help take care of my kiddo and myself, and just to be there with me and to sit with me and listen to me or just allow me to cry. And then my mom and my sister continued that on much further. I had teacher friends create meal train. They reached out to all of my students' parents. They helped, make meals. And that went on for same thing, about 4 months, meal trains. I would have people show up, drop a coffee off at my doorstep and just say, like, I'm not here to chat. I just want to drop off a warm drink to you. I love you. I will talk to you soon. I'll check in with you. Oh gosh. I mean, again, I was so lucky. I had a girlfriend of mine send me a weighted blanket. I'm like, what is this noise? Oh man, that thing is magic. I've even shared about that on my Instagram account. I'm like, every one of us needs a weighted blanket, and I'm tiny. I'm 5'2". She got me a kid's weighted blanket. It worked out perfectly. But I had people just listening to me talk about Kevin. I had people that would just sit in my pain, and they would show up, and they weren't afraid to show up. They weren't afraid to show up imperfectly, because this is messy, and we're grievers are going to make mistakes, and the people supporting us are going to make mistakes. My sister said like something foot in mouth in the beginning and was just like so embarrassed. I think it was like we were out to breakfast, and she said something like, well, the upside is that you don't have to pay for 2 meals. And then she was like instantly, and she and my husband were like tight, thick as thieves. They were like brother and sister. And her face went white and was just like, oh my God, but it's like, again, she's showing up. She's there for me. She's trying to make something light that's so dark, that's so heavy.
And it's kind of true.
Right. Yeah. I mean, no, but
not wrong.
She's not wrong. But just people that we're not trying to fix or mend you because you're not broken. Grief is a natural process. It is a natural response to loss, and there is nothing to be fixed. It's to be sat with. And I think those people, I just had so many people in my life that even if they didn't know what to do or how to do it, they showed up anyway. And that was such a game changer and super, super helpful. And also, I think one of the most helpful things for me above all of that was I actually went out of my way to connect to the widow community. And I had 2 women reach out to me almost instantly after Kevin was killed. One whose husband was killed like the exact same way. And then another whose husband was a firefighter killed in a local fire. And they both lived locally, and they were just like, whatever you need, you don't even know us. It doesn't even matter. Trust me, we're all sisters now. Like, we've got you. And this is what your next few weeks are going to look like. And you're going to just be an absolute disaster. And you're not going to know up from down. And we've got you. So that was huge for me, that you wake up speaking a whole nother language. And now all of a sudden you're connecting to people that speak that language with you and will share some of their darkest moments with you and understand, just like you're saying, just making jokes, because at some point you have to laugh, right? And they get it.
Yeah, and we talk about this sometimes, like you sometimes have to be part of the club to be able to say those things.
Yeah.
You're joking from a place of knowing and not from a place of...
Right, and I think, so, because people get freaked out. I mean, and I still feel this way. And Anita, I'm sure you feel like this too. Mel, do you have kids? Okay, so no. I told my sister, back to my poor sister, she's going to be listening to this podcast, I'm like, what are you doing throwing me under the bus?
Okay, what's your sister's name?
My sister's name's Audra.
Hi, Audra!
And she just had a little baby,
going.
So now she gets it. But before, she did not have a baby. So after Kevin was killed, I instantly was like, I will die if something happens to my son. Like, I'll die. White flag, life is over. And she would be like, stop talking like that. Like, you're always the person to talk people out of of that kind of dark space that they're in. Like, it's my turn. I'm going to talk you out of that. And I'm like, you don't get it. And then I went out to dinner with my 2 widow sister girlfriends, Amanda and Shanna. And I start sharing the story with them, and they just start laughing. They're like, oh yeah. Like, I remember saying, like, I was going to go stand in front of a train. I couldn't handle this life, like whatever. And that people are just like, you need to call a hotline. Like, you need to, so, I mean, and I get it. Again, like, genuinely concerned for you. But like, when you are with your widows, you're like, okay, like, you do want to live. You do want to be here. But like, something catastrophic has happened to you, and to think that even one more thing could happen, it would like implode you as a human being. And people, even who love you, because they love you, they're terrified to even hear stuff like that come out of your mouth. And I think that's what, finding that community and that connection to people that understand that depth of pain is something that is, it really is priceless.
Yeah. I remember feeling so relieved when a widow friend that I met early on, when I texted her, because I think it's totally normal to have thoughts of suicide after something like this. And it's just like you're saying, people are like, no. And I remember feeling so relieved when I texted her how I was feeling, and she didn't try and talk me out of it. And she was like, it's normal to have those thoughts. You know what I'm saying? And I just felt like I didn't have to defend my thoughts. Right. And again, there's a difference between having those thoughts and making a plan and things like that. But just to have somebody who's like, absolutely, of course you're having those thoughts. Why wouldn't you have those thoughts right now? And it made me feel so much better.
Yeah, I always go back to Megan Devine, the author of It's Okay That You're Not Okay. And she says everything inside of grief is correct. And it's true. And I think that it can be such an isolating feeling. You can feel so alone with these thoughts. And if you're not talking to people about them, you think that you're the only one thinking this, and that there's something wrong with you, and that it's bad, you're bad, and I think, as time goes on, you want to find things that are helpful and not hindering. But in the beginning, when you're just surviving it, you're going to have every thought imaginable in your mind, every thought. One of my really good friends, she lost her first son. He was stillborn. And actually, that's not true. He wasn't stillborn. He was born and then died within like the first few minutes of life. And that has sat with her for over 20 years. And she told me that she just couldn't stand when people were serving you the platitudes, right? Like, she's like, I'm here for you. This sucks. Like, I want to take it all back for you. I hate it for you. Like, it's not okay. And I think people don't want to tell you that because they want to be like a beacon of light for you, but you're not in that space yet. You're not ready for that yet. So like, just sit there and be okay with saying it sucks.
And here's a donut, and you don't have to
here's
eat
a donut.
it.
Funny too. I have this thing about donuts. I don't even eat donuts. I don't even know where this comes from, but you were saying like, baby steps. And I say that too, baby steps, deep breaths. But I also look at grief like eating a donut. You cannot shove that whole thing in your mouth, right? Like, you're taking baby bites of this donut.
Wait, you can't?
Wait.
I mean, it's a donut hole.
She's not talking about the donut.
Right.
Oh,
right.
Okay. Sorry. I had my donuts
It just
mixed
made me
up.
think of that when you said donut. It's this huge mountain to climb, and we're looking at the top, and we're not going to get there tomorrow. We're not. And especially in the beginning, life just looks so grim, and all you can do, all anyone can do for you is just be there.
Yeah. I always say that when their intention when they say something to you is to fix it, there's nothing you can say that fixes
No.
it. You can't make me feel better. The only thing that you can say to me is, I see you and I love you.
Yeah.
And that's where it needs to end, and not trying to give you a reason or, not trying to fix your feelings, because nobody can do that.
Yeah.
I think my advice to our fellow widows and widowers is that you will survive. It does not feel like you will, and it's okay for it to not feel like you will. But as time moves forward, you realize that it gets lighter and you still have heavy days, but things start to become joyous again, because in the beginning, it's not joyous. You don't, I remember even seeing like some other widows who were a little bit farther out than me, and they were posting things about gratitude. And I'm like, ugh, how could you even do that? How dare you? There's nothing to be grateful for. So I think knowing you're going to survive, feeling it all, do not push that grief away, because it's going to come up within you at some point, whether you deal with it today or you deal with it 2 years from now. Like, your grief wants to be seen. It wants to be felt. It wants to be heard. That pain that you're dealing with is totally normal. Everything that you're feeling is correct, like I mentioned before. And connect, ask for help, meet other widows. It doesn't matter, if you're not ready to meet widows in the first few weeks, then wait. But when the time is right for you, you'll feel it, you'll know, and you need to connect. I feel like that has been, I say it's the tribe that no one should be a part of, but it's necessary for survival once you're in it. It really is. They're some of the ultimate life vests, that's for sure. And then for our grief civilians, I had just said, show up. I like to say showing up costs you nothing. And if you don't show up, it costs you everything, right? We do have a few of Kevin's really close friends who just disappeared. And in the beginning, it was absolutely devastating. It was just another loss. And it was purely because they could not handle their discomfort around death and grief. And that would be another piece of advice for our civilians is get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Death and grief, our society has created those things to be uncomfortable, and you're going to have to learn to sit with that if you want to support someone who's grieving a loss, such as a loss of a spouse or a child, and show up imperfectly, make the mistakes. It's okay to make the mistakes. Don't give the platitudes. No one wants to hear everything happens for a reason. God needed him more. They lived a full life in their 36 years. No one wants to hear that. Now, my sister would say, well, some people who are more religious might want to hear something like God needs them more, but typically they still don't. And even if they do, then know your audience. If you know someone well enough to know that that's going to provide them peace and comfort, then do so. But otherwise, leave it at the doorstep. Come in, tell them it sucks, show up for them. And I think the last thing for them I would say too is, well, not the two last things would be allow the person to share their stories about their significant other, and then you share the stories. You're not reminding us they're dead. We are very well aware that they are dead. So, take the time. I've had so many people share. We've created a book of stories about Kevin, and it's so beautiful. And it's just amazing to see what people had to say about him and how they felt about him. It's just something that has been, again, another priceless thing. And then last, grief doesn't have a timeline. And please.
It's so annoying.
I know, you date too soon, or you don't date soon enough, or you should be over this. Or my dad even had someone tell him, I should sack up. It's been time. She's been 14 months. She needs to sack up. And you're just like, wait, Como? Like, I don't even, what does that look like? What does sack look like? I mean, I'm going to work full time. I pay my mortgage. I pay all of our bills. I'm taking care of a child. And again, it's just like stuff like that where people put their own lived experiences that have nothing to do with a loss like this on you, and they expect you to look like them. And it's not like that. The 5 stages of grief, they don't speak to everyone. They weren't meant for grievers. They were meant for the terminally ill. And don't open a book up on the 5 stages of grief and be like, oh yeah, okay, you should be going through anger right now. Okay. Yeah, you're still in shock and numbness. All right, well, acceptance should be right around the corner. Like, no, it's not going to happen. So, and it's not linear. I had someone say like, oh, hopefully time will just take this all away for you. Time heals all wounds. And it's like, well, time creates a little scar tissue, but time does not just like heal everything back to what it once was. It's not ever going to be what it once was. So
I love the comparison to scar tissue. It's my favorite because I do wound care, and so I'm like,
You're
scar
tissue, right? Like, this is the biggest wound.
So true.
You have a gaping hole in your heart, and it's never going to come back and be what it was before.
And the thing I love about the scar tissue analogy is that scar tissue remodels. So first you put down a scab, and then that scab remodels into skin, and even that skin starts to remodel, and it takes years and years and years for that new skin to grow into the strongest it's going to be. And you don't see a lot of that remodeling. It's not visible to the eye, but that's why your scar goes from purple and raised to white. But you always have that scar. It's never going to be native skin ever again. It will always be scar tissue. And at some point in time, it's going to be pretty strong, but it's going to take years of remodeling. And a lot of that has to happen within, and it's not visible. And for a lot of people, it looks healed. As soon as it's covered, they think it's all good.
Well, the second you smile and show some sense of joy. Kevin's mom has mentioned that so many times. Like, I think people just think that like I've moved on from my son. I still have so much pain and suffering internally. But the second you smile, people go like, oh, she's okay. Yes, we're good. Everybody's good. Oh, and that would be my other thing too. Like, when you show up, don't just show up for a month. Don't just show up for 6 months. Like, show up forever. Show up for good. Like, we want you there. We want you to be a part of our life. And, you have people that are showing up with the hot meals and coming to the ceremony and the celebration of life. And then you're like, wait, where did you go? It's been 15 months now and you're not here. Like, one text message every 5 months, just like, hey, thinking of you. Well, I mean, some people, that's fine. You got to weed out some of them if that's how they're going to show up for you. But I think for a lot of people, it's because they want to be there. They let their thoughts and their insecurities get in the way of just, coming and being a part of your life.
That was amazing.
Yes. Mic drop. The end.
Yes. Mel, do you want to ask the most important of all of the questions?
This is a question that is very near and dear to our hearts. It's very serious.
Okay.
So think about this. Don't take it lightly.
Don't answer wrong.
Don't answer wrong. But
you'll be dead to us.
What is your favorite kind of cheese, assuming that you like cheese, and you have dairy. And if you do not have dairy, what's your favorite vegan cheese?
Well, you guys are going to make this really hard for me because Kevin was like a cheese connoisseur, and I can't even feel like I can say definitively that I have one. I instantly sharp cheddar, love sharp cheddar, but then I have like goat cheese and feta and oh gosh, I mean Gruyere. I literally can't think of. Let's just stick with sharp cheddar.
Thank you so much for joining us, Lauren, and telling us your story and also sharing your wisdom. If you guys want to find Lauren, tell us what your Instagram account is.
It is I'm sorry we're friends.
Oh,
yeah,
I know.
Which is so true, right? So connect with Lauren there. She's just become part of the Widow Wives Club. So if you want to connect with her there, you can also, chat with her there. Remember to check out our Patreon. It's patreon.com/WWDN.
Or you could buy us tacos at buymeacoffee/widowwedonow. Or not.
Remember to check out the Widow Wives Club. And until we talk to you the next time, I'm Anita.
I'm Mel.
And Lauren.
And we're just two young widows and somebody who is being treated like a prisoner of war sometimes. And we're just trying to figure out, widow, we do now.
This is my favorite thing to discuss with you.
Tell me, what is it?
One of my favorite things. I do enjoy tacos and cheese and dogs. This is about how you cannot pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars for a phone plan, especially when you're a widow, your person is dead, you might have kids, you might need another option, and you just want your phone to work, you want unlimited texting and service, and you want it to be like $25 a month.
It blows my mind that they have plans that start at $15 a month. That is so cheap. And the cool thing is it uses other 5G networks, and so you don't have to pay extra for that, and you still get great service.
Yep, Anita and I have traveled all over, and I have used my phone. So I highly recommend it, and my mom's even on it. When my dad died, we put his phone down to the cheapest plan, which is $15 a month. And I think my mom's on the $20 a month plan, and it's so worth it. It's so much cheaper than what we were all paying before. So I highly recommend it if you're on a budget or not. Who cares? Ryan Reynolds is in charge of the company, and they send you free stickers with Ryan Reynolds temporary tattoos. It's kind of the best. So if somebody wants to sign up, what can they do, Anita?
Go to trymintmobile.com/WWDN. Seriously, you guys, such a great idea. Save yourself some money.
And if you're worried about losing data or having any changes with your phone, not going to happen. They walk you through it. Everything's fine. It's the easiest process of all time. Again, that's
trymintmobile.com/WWDN.